right, so development. You have this person in place. What are you going to do to help them, to make them shine, essentially? That's what you're trying to do. There's the old rule, 70-20-10. 70-20 is basically on-the-job experience, and 10% is actual traditional learning. Okay, but there's nothing like on-the-job experience. One distributor in my morning session, part of how people will stay on at their company is that they have to go and do every single job, work in every single department in their company. They have to do it for at least a month. It doesn't matter what they originally hired them for. They have to work the warehouse. They have to sit in sales. They have to do this. They have to run the counter. And by the end of that year, right, not only does this person have a great knowledge of your company, but you can see that they have an aptitude for things, right? Because people gravitate to what they're good at.
So you're saying in each department for a month?
Some of them for a month. Some of them were sooner than that because they got it quicker than others.
See, we have a program where we bring people through different departments, but the younger people don't want to be there a month. And that's kind of a struggle. They want to move on. I've had enough of this. I want my next assignment.
Interesting.
Even as short as a month? I always thought, as long as they saw a definite window, they
Like the end of a
I have
tunnel.
people that know it's going to be a month and in 2 weeks are complaining about it.
If they don't like the job, they want to move on. If they like it, they want to stay.
So,
Yes, absolutely.
so how do you handle that? Do you just,
It depends on the person.
Okay.
Sometimes it's, okay, you really need to finish this out. Sometimes it's, okay, this isn't working for either one of us.
but that's kind of a good way to gauge whether this person's going to stay or not.
True.
Do you felt like you might have lost some good people with that?
Not yet, but I think
We had someone that was going through the program that we put in the department, and he really rejected it, and it made everyone start questioning whether he was the right person. He moved on to his new assignment, took to it, and now it's like overnight, the whole opinion of the company.
So his mindset was like, you know what, I'm not even going to be open to this.
Yeah, and we thought it was a negative thing, but now we're not sure if that was such a thing. Because it's a generational gap
Yeah.
between the way that,
So having that mechanism in place, so he obviously gave you feedback on whether he liked it or not.
yeah, those people have monthly meetings with our HR.
Oh, good.
So it's definitely an interactive process.
So that just sounds like you have to do it case by case, though. There's no blanket answer for that. That's tough. But it sounds like a good way, though, to at least weed some people out. And like I said, people tend to gravitate toward what they think they're going to be good at. So,
Even beyond just developing the person with their personal skills, it develops them so they understand the flow of the work within the organization. So even if he doesn't like it, he spends 2 weeks and never wants to do it, at least he understands a little bit more about what that department does.
And he has an appreciation, he or she has an appreciation for what that person does.
absolutely.
So it still serves the purpose even if they only are there for a short amount of time.
Because how many people, growing up wanted to be a distributor? It was your lifelong dream, right? 10-year-olds, like, I'm going to take an order. And so it's good to expose people who are fairly new to not only to a company, but to the job, but to the industry as well. Because, our industry, it seems so simple on the surface. But really, there's a lot of nuances that you have to be able to overcome and understand to really excel. So it's not a bad thing. But how long do you give them? I don't have a good answer for you, because it just sounds like, because I was going to say, wow, that's a good red flag for me to give him the boot, but then you moved that guy to the other department, and he was fine.
I think people were very surprised at how long I think our opinions were.
Night and day, huh? Wow. So did it take long to bounce back from that? Like, were you kind of hesitant to move the next person through?
No, I mean, you need to be developing talent. You have to continue to do it. You're going to discover that you have the wrong person sometimes along the line. You need to make those changes, make a drop of a dime. Because I don't think that the younger, I'm not that old. don't think younger people, I have kids that don't have patience to, to do what I'm asking these people to do. They need that gratification.
That instant feedback.
Yeah. Within a year, they should be running the company, not just finishing an orientation process.
Yeah. That's part of such a much larger, complicated generational. We could do a whole other paper on that particular topic. And there's really, there's just no good answers, because you can only adapt so much. And like I said, the millennials tend to get a bad rap. Some of it's deserved, some of it's not. But I think they can introduce some ideas about feedback and business culture and changing that up. But they also have to be able to give a little. They have to understand. And that's too where like some reverse mentoring might come in, them being exposed to other people, and maybe some folks that have been at the company for a long time. And like, I remember when we used to do it this way. So be lucky we can do it this way now. So maybe just kind of giving them a different different outlook on the way business has changed. That always worked for me. Going, oh wow, yeah, this is much faster than how I used to go. Yes?
Well, a lot of the challenge we've got issues in two areas. The first is entry-level positions. We're trying to track somebody to a position which really isn't, or you don't need a college degree to go pick an order. Mm-hmm. So you're working with a pool of people who the salary isn't necessarily very attractive. And so you have people who tend to be a little bit more, they'll move around from job to job for a quarter raise. So that's one end where we have it. Then we have it where you do bring these people in who become very proficient in what they do. They move up from maybe the wire room to the counter to inside sales. The progression is slow. Mm-hmm. It's not a very fast progression. And then trying to backfill as we grow as a company with people who are ready to step up into more key roles, whether it be managing a small branch, or somebody can handle a large project, like moving a store or moving a location.
Yeah.
We have a limited number of talented people at a certain level in the company who are capable of doing that, and we need to be wired at that level. So those are the two areas where we have the largest challenge, and short of taking somebody else's employees, which, we'll do. We have people, we're a good company, people come to us, they would like to work for us. We don't poach, but we've been approached and we hire good people. But short of that type of thing, trying to find those talented people either at the low end or that middle moving up end, that sometimes we're successful and other times it's hard finding good people. And in our, at least where we are, it's about the people.
About the people, absolutely. So a gentleman in the morning session mentioned that he has such a hard time finding counter people. Good quality counter people. So I wanted to throw it out to anybody else here that might have an idea of how to help them out. Yes?
I had some limited success. I would post job openings with the job service, and I would say this is what the job is going to be, but before that you're going to do this, and this, and this, and I put the time frame, approximate time frame mm-hmm. to do the job, so in 4 months or 6 months or whatever, we will train you to get up to this position here. And I've had people, at least they know what the expectations are. And as long as they know what the expectations are, they tend to at least be satisfied with that process. We've had employees say, geez, I saw this guy at the coffee shop. He'd make a great employee. But this guy, he went through, started the warehouse, mm-hmm. and now he's in inside sales after 5 months.
Yeah, so you have that gut feeling that that person might be good. But it's funny because now we have to have people want that information up front, like how long is it going to take me to do here and here and here. Before, I know when I was interviewing for my first jobs, you didn't really know that you got your job and you might learn that the first week, but you were there to do your job, figure it out, and then maybe move on to the next level. But now we have to be able to inform them of this time frame. It's so much different than what they want. So that's a really good approach because you can weed people out almost immediately. No one's going to apply if they don't want to wait for moving into their actual job for 6 months. So.
Similar to what
I
think you were saying about you have so many people that are at a certain level. You just don't foresee that they're going to be people you can rely on. But every so often there's someone that will surprise you. So that's where we've had other people saying, geez, I know you're interviewing, did you ever think about that person? But, I'm sitting in my office. I never realized that that person really had it in, they're like, yeah, that person could do that. And so we've been pleasantly surprised a few times.
So that relates to not only just the whole issue of developing this person, but really positioning it within the company itself on a larger scale and being able to have that plan in place and then having consistent messaging about it and making sure that your doors are open, because again, people might surprise you, and having perhaps just a forum or some kind of communication, even with managers to HR, saying, you know, this person seems to be doing well, this person doesn't. So it really goes back to the communication between the HR and the managers. And if somebody is doing really, really well, you have to know about it. And having that in place to make sure that they are addressed, kind of thing. So, yeah. So development, and then giving the opportunity to try and develop, because like you said, you might identify a person as a really high potential, but then you have to give them some assignments, right? And make sure that they have the means to demonstrate what they want to do. So PA Consulting gave us a list of different kinds of tasks that you can give each people, and really for our industry, again, having people move about in different departments, learning what other people do within the industry, kind of these cross moves, cross training thing really seems to work well. Also giving them a challenge, a project, and actually working with other employees for some kind of like internal task force, right? That kind of gives them the confidence to be able to move on and maybe do some other things for customers. Right, so those are the few things. International assignments, I don't think we really have to worry about that too much. It's not yet anyway, right? Deploy, again, is just this really fancy term to making sure that you have the means in place to make it happen. Right. Focusing on filling those critical roles with the guidelines that you've set in place, making sure that HR and management are on the same page. And that's part of when you have those talent review meetings, this is a way to integrate that conversation as well. And you're gonna have to weigh how people are doing. So you have to come up with your own system for deciding, well, you know what, we're gonna let this slide, but this they absolutely have to be able to do. It goes back to that competencies conversation. And then some just considerations when trying to bridge that gap between management and HR and having those conversations. Three things, explore means of recognition for managers who are doing a good job and being able to recognize this. Making sure that you have your plan in place and it's not just a contingency plan, you're not just being reactive, right? We all know it's coming, right? Change is gonna happen. We have a lot of people leaving the workforce and not so many people ready to fill their gap, right, fill their roles. So you have to have a plan in place. And then making sure you have some kind of practice for figuring out if it's working or not. And like I said, this is not tried and true. This is very scalable to whatever your companies are. So you can take these steps that you feel will be best for your company and be able to work them in. What I'm showing you today is kind of the top-notch, very comprehensive, we're gonna reach for the stars in our talent management program. Okay, not everybody's gonna be able to do this. But with this kind of system, it even will work for smaller, mid-sized organizations, right? You don't have to reach for the stars, you just gotta be able to look at the sky and figure out where you wanna place people. Okay. Included in the report, we just have all kinds of little templates and tools that you can print out, and you don't have to use these exactly, but it just gives you an idea of maybe the time frames you wanna set up for people. This person might be ready now, you know what, they might need a little bit more training. Whose role are they gonna fill? And as you're doing that, you also have to have the means in place to make sure, right, if a person's been at a company for 25 years, they have a lot of company knowledge, right? And you have to make sure that there are some means in place that they can transfer that knowledge to this new person. Because over the years, you just learn a lot about customers and you learn a lot about product and facilitating a deal, and some of it just can't be learned. Some of it you have to be exposed to, and there's little tricks of the trade that only a person that's been there for a long time will be able to pass along. So having that means in place as well. So the first one was for internal purposes, and this is when you are talking to the person that is a high potential. What are their future career aspirations? Why do they like coming to work? Right. Where would they like to go? What time frame? So these kinds of little tools you can use in your conversations. Part of this deployment is the capability, making sure your organization has the means to be able to have a great talent management program. management and HR are in conversation with each other. You've identified your people. You're doing, this person is just doing outstanding. We're going to move this person up. So again, this is just making sure the organization has the means to do it. Okay. Making it happen. And this is where we start to involve the potential, the high potential. So you've done all the work. You've told them, this is what we want to do. We're giving you more responsibility. So as an organization, on the left side are kind of your responsibilities now in this process, right? Making sure it's consistent, it's happening, communication to the employees as much as you want to, and supporting the individual, having a means for feedback. If they're having trouble, creating an environment where there won't be repercussions for asking questions. Because that's one of the reasons people run away, is they don't feel like they can be heard. So having a mentoring program or having some other kind of support system in place. And then to the individual, they have to be able to understand what the organization's definition of talent is and how they fit that criteria, all right? Making sure that they are actively pursuing their responsibilities and using the support tools in place to be able to provide feedback. And when you have all these steps in place, right, you start to develop this really great conversation about how people are working in your company. So the people that can have productive conversations, they'll be able to work better because, right, they have a clear goal in mind. This last step, they've combined data management, measurement, and engagement. And this is really kind of the last step to one of that top-notch comprehensive program. And this is where you can bring in metrics if you want, you can bring in analytics, or it can be as simple as just ticking on the box like, yeah, this person's ready now. This person will be ready in like 18 months. So a lot of the bigger companies, the big distributors and big manufacturers already have these kinds of things in place, and we're certainly not suggesting it for everyone. This takes some time, it takes some effort. And lastly, just some of these retention drivers, what keeps people around. From a leader, they want trust, recognition, and support. They want to make sure they have meaningful work. They want to make sure their organization gives them flexibility, some kind of success and growth. Working with talented people for some collective goal. And that really comes to the mindset of the millennials, right? They're very much invested in teamwork. They also want to make sure that their companies have a sense of purpose. And so now you see, you just go on any company's website, they start showing what they're doing for the community, right? Start bringing a sense of purpose. Not only just, they're not there to make money, give people jobs, but they're also helping the community around them. So those people that are coming in, they're like, you know what, I work for a great company. You know why? Because we just did a canned food drive. Or we went here and we helped at Thanksgiving dinner. We fed, hungry kids food. So giving them this greater purpose with their company. And then making sure they have the means to develop. Coaching, mentoring, opportunity for advancement, those kinds of things. And then when you're thinking about retention drivers, just those last 4 questions I wanted to point out to make sure it's going well and what you might have to do to revise it. So in the full report, it's presented as like a PowerPoint like this one. So these are all the tools that you can possibly have at your disposal. So the original report is, I've nicknamed it the Encyclopedia of Talent Management because it has every reason you need to implement it, any ways you can, and just all kinds of tools that you have at your disposal. So NAED has heard you about trying to figure out employee life cycle and career planning. So in addition to the talent management program, we've also created a website for additional career planning resources. It's www.naed.org/employee lifecycle. And there you will see all kinds of resources for onboarding, career planning, succession planning, talent management, all kinds of things that you can consider. So I wanted to thank you for coming today. If you're interested in getting the presentation, please give me your business card, and please fill out your evaluations, if you would, and hand them to Colleen, who is standing in the back. And I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.